Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, with some post-fight thoughts on Saul Alvarez's victory over Austin Trout. But before I go further, just remember the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. You know, I'm a gambler. Personally, I believe we're all gambling. Right? If you have money in the bank, whether you know it or not, as the people in Cyprus have found out, you're gambling. Right? Life involves risks. But one of the biggest problems with gambling is that sometimes you lose. Sometimes you're wrong. Now, whatever the punch stat numbers were, and I'm aware of them, right? Austin Trout dominated the punch stat numbers. Whatever they are, I was wrong on this fight, right? I didn't think the fight was going to be close. I thought Austin Trout was just a better fighter than Saul Alvarez. And on my way to victory, a problem arose. A different Saul Alvarez showed up last night. Right? And I have to say that as I was watching him, I understood that I had underestimated him as a fighter. That he was much better, very much improved over the Saul Alvarez that I had looked at on film for years. Right? People online can go back, just Google Dwyer Saul Alvarez. You'll see a video I made on Saul Alvarez maybe 3 years ago. Right? All I can say is the fighter who showed up yesterday was very different than the fighter I expected. Let's talk about where I was wrong and what caught my eye, the things that he did that surprised me, and there was a lot. And let me just say, as the fight went along, I understood. Even though I was rooting for Austin Trout for financial reasons, I understood that Austin Trout was in the deep end of the water. This was even before the knockdown in the 7th round, which quite frankly was a masterpiece. Let's talk about it. First, what stunned me with Canelo, and this was a repeated theme in the fight, was Canelo's uppercut. I know it's not the punch that dropped Austin Trout, but really it was a great uppercut. And Canelo was able to land it repeatedly. He'd frame it. He would have it set up where Austin Trout was literally trying to dive in and would come into the uppercut. And it was accurate, right? Devastating and accurate. Not a lot of wasted motion. To me, that's a big development, because Canelo already has one of boxing's best left hooks, right? We knew that pre-fight. Just look at the pre-fight video. Canelo already has an excellent straight right hand. If you're now going to give him the ability, if he now has the ability to just drop a shoulder and hit you with right uppercuts on the button, that makes him a much more dangerous fighter. I encourage anyone watching the fight to just keep track of Canelo's uppercuts. It's a great punch. Okay, I was watching Saul Alvarez and suddenly saw Carl Froch, right? Great uppercuts, and the way he was able to throw it. Understand, Canelo can be on his back foot and get off that punch. Quite frankly, I thought Austin Trout was badly hurt by that punch several times in the fight. Canelo's uppercut impressed me quite a bit. Another thing that really impressed me was the fact that when Austin Trout came out, and it was a great first round. Let me say this too. It just depends on how you view boxing. For me, this fight was even better than the Brandon Rios Mike Alvarado fight. Strategy-wise, it was an eye-opener from start to finish. The first round, Austin Trout comes out, obviously prepared for the same fighter I thought he was going to fight, and he's on his front foot. Right? Austin Trout is trying to destroy Canelo. He's on his front foot in the first round. He forces Canelo to be on his back foot. As I was watching the fight in real time, my thought was, this fight's going to end sooner than I think. Austin Trout is prepared to close this show early. What I didn't expect was Canelo on his back foot to literally be able to show head movement and upper body elusiveness. Let me say, Canelo has a couple of traits that really are major. The first is an ability, like James Toney, to stay calm, regardless of the bullets that are flying. In other words, here's Austin Trout, heavier volume than him throughout the fight, coming in behind one of the sport's better jabs, right? He throws it frequently. He's on his front foot, right? They're fighting in front of almost 40,000 fans, and Austin Trout's not running from Canelo. He's not respecting Canelo's power. He's daring Canelo to throw with him. And Saul Alvarez, just like James Toney, in the face of volume and aggression, literally looks like he's watching a movie. He's just calm, no panic. He's 22. Certainly wasn't Abner Cotto, right, who fell apart in the earlier fight. Here the bullets start flying, and Canelo is calm. Better yet, Canelo is operating. In other words, as Trout comes in, Canelo backs up but makes sure he's not pinned on the ropes. He has a sense of where they are in the ring. He also is able to roll with punches. Now, I'm not saying he's a master at it, right? In my opinion, Canelo's just learning it. But Canelo was pretty good rolling with punches, keeping himself from getting hit flush. No panic, upper body elusiveness. I didn't expect all of that. Canelo actually is able to get by the first round. He loses the first round on my scorecard, but he gets by the first round. And he does it on his back foot, right? Now let me say this about punch stat numbers, and I do review them in preparing for fights and in analyzing fights after the fact. You know, punch stat numbers don't highlight the power of the punches, right? Sometimes one punch from one fighter equals 3 or 4 from the other fighter, right? Here it was clear that Saul Alvarez, pound for pound, is one of the hardest punchers in the sport, right? Even though he's getting outthrown and outlanded, when he landed his punches, you could feel the power. Also, his punches were clean punches. In other words, he's a counter puncher who's able to capitalize on openings, right? I don't think the punch stat numbers properly reflected the quality of the punches that Canelo landed. Let me also say something else, and here's where we get a little bit hazy. You didn't really hear this on the Showtime telecast. But in my opinion, a very important part of boxing doesn't show up on the stat sheet. It's ring generalship, right? When you're watching a fight and let's say a Ray Leonard is waving his hand or throws a bolo punch, a Roy Jones is shuffling his feet, right? When, Paulie Malignaggi kind of like takes a step back and throws a little bit extra flourish in what he's doing. To me, that's impressive. To me, that's playing to the crowd. Boxing, after all, is entertainment, right? The fans want to be entertained. And I believe a big part of boxing is just giving the impression that the fight is going the way you want. That you're not too fazed by anything the other guy's doing. That you're in control of the fight. And you want the fans to know that, and you're carrying yourself that way. Here, even though Austin Trout was the busier fighter, I'll just say that Canelo's body language, his facial expressions, the fact that he looked calm the entire fight, the fact that he looked unhurried the entire fight, and his efficiency, the fact that he was landing punches at a higher rate than Austin Trout. He was much more efficient than Austin Trout. I thought gave the impression that he was in control of the fight. I thought Saul Alvarez had the better ring generalship than Austin Trout. Right? You're watching the fight. Canelo at times even had a smirk on his face. Austin Trout would come in, throw a combination. Canelo would turn like this. Then he would have a look on his face as if to say, is that all you have? Right? I thought he had the better ring generalship. Now, all of that said, it's debatable who won the fight. The judging was absurd. Let's face it, right? Understand that Trout lands many more jabs than Canelo. Trout throws literally hundreds more punches than Canelo. The power punching is practically a dead heat, right? Canelo throws one more power punch than Austin Trout. I think it's a fair statement to say that if this fight were fought before 40,000 people in a venue that was as pro-Trout as the crowd was pro-Canelo last night, right? And if Trout went into the fight with the level of fan support that Canelo had going into yesterday's fight, perhaps the outcome would have been different. As Brian Kenny said after the fight, this fight could have gone either way. Understand, Al Bernstein had the fight a draw. What I'm here to say to you today is simply that I was someone who didn't think the fight was going to be that close, right? Part of my betting strategy was to take the under 9.5 rounds because I thought Austin Trout might close the show in under 9.5 rounds. And I was surprised by how good Saul Alvarez did. I was surprised by Saul Alvarez's developing skill set. I was surprised by Saul Alvarez's improved defense. The fact that he turns now when you're up on him, right? He had a problem with Miguel Cotto's older brother when he was backed up against the ropes in that fight. Here, he's backed up against the ropes early by a far better boxer, and he's turning, he's countering, he's boxing, and he looked good doing it, right? No question, Canelo vastly exceeded my expectations. I tip my hat to him. I lost this one big time. I should visit a casino and look around at all the new things in the casino that they paid for off of the money I lost on this bet. But let's just say that I was very impressed by Saul Alvarez, as painful a lesson as that was for me to learn. Now, here are the challenges, because I know people are going to say, well, how would Saul Alvarez do against the winner of Floyd Mayweather Robert Guerrero. Also, how would Saul Alvarez do against complicated fighters like Carlos Molina, Arislandi Lara, one division up, Sergio Martinez, right? In fact, Gennady Golovkin, Hassan Njiku, right? These are names that we know. How would he do? What are the challenges that he faces? Let's talk about those challenges. First, stamina. You have to have a real big concern about it. Saul Alvarez is taking off whole portions of rounds. I know he's gone 12 rounds many times, right? The problem, though, is he's not fighting a full 12 rounds. He literally takes off a round and a half every few rounds or so, right? If you look at his punch stat rate, the guy threw less than 450 punches in this fight. Now, Austin Trout wasn't as accurate as Floyd Mayweather usually is, right? Mayweather, in many fights, will often get outthrown by his opponent, but will land more punches than his opponent, right? Mayweather's accuracy is in the 40% range, right? Very accurate. I have a hard time believing that anyone can fight Floyd Mayweather, not throw more punches than Floyd, in fact, throw less punches than Floyd, and expect to beat Floyd Mayweather without knocking him out, right? I have my doubts. Keep in mind, Canelo has great punching power. He certainly is a puncher. Austin Trout just went 12 rounds with Saul Alvarez, right? Going 12 rounds, the fact that Saul Alvarez has gone 12 rounds with a host of people, right, should tell you that it's possible to go 12 rounds with him. Does he have the volume to hang with Floyd Mayweather? I think that's an open question, right? Because if it's a low volume fight, I'll take the guy with the better defense. Saul Alvarez's defense is improved. It's not Floyd Mayweather's defense. He's not defensively Floyd Mayweather. He's going to have to do something outside the box to offset Mayweather's defensive superiority. I don't think, based on his below average stamina, that he'll be able to out-volume Floyd Mayweather. So I don't know what else he can do other than knock Mayweather out if he's going to offset Mayweather's defensive superiority, right? The next thing, hand speed. I know in the post-fight interview, and it was a stunner, Alvarez was talking about his velocity, right? Well, Alvarez hits hard, but like some other big hard hitters, Big George Foreman comes to mind, other guys with huge punches, the hand speed isn't there consistently, right? He fights in bursts, and he can leap across and hit you with an uppercut. No question about that. But he doesn't have the kind of hand speed, in my opinion, to hang with the guy who comes in and starts throwing combinations, right? I believe that's always going to be a concern. I haven't seen too many fighters go from having B- hand speed to having A-level hand speed, right? So the hand speed is going to be a concern. Also, let's talk defense. Understand, when you do some of the defensive maneuvers that Saul Alvarez does, where, at times Trout's throwing and Alvarez just leans, right? Alvarez is, a guy who at times is, naked, doesn't have his hands up, but is leaning away from punches, right? He keeps his hands low, particularly later in fights when he gets a little bit tired. All I'm here to say is that could be a recipe for disaster. right? I couldn't imagine someone keeping their hands low against James Toney, right? Some sharpshooter is going to come in, and time him. I believe that Canelo, who has improved his defense, needs to tighten it up a bit more. In other words, defense has to be an ongoing theme of Saul Alvarez's camp. So to sum up, I was impressed by Canelo. The uppercut is a huge addition to his arsenal. The upper body elusiveness, the calmness, the ring generalship, the efficiency, the ability to fight on his back foot, they all impressed me. Right? In terms of how the fight was scored, don't believe the judges' scorecards. Right? This fight was very much in doubt. In fact, unfortunately, because of open scoring, we don't know how those last rounds would have gone had neither boxer known what the scorecard said. Right? So Canelo, for example, takes off the 12th round. Right? He's hanging out knowing that he has the fight won. Right? Maybe he does better in that round if the fight were in doubt. Maybe Austin Trout does better because maybe Canelo, in being more aggressive, would have left more openings for him to counter. Right? We just don't know. But I'm here to tell you the fight was razor close. Canelo did vastly exceed my expectations. As Austin Trout said after the fight, Canelo is a complete fighter. I'll say this. He's a complete fighter for 22, right? He's getting better with time. There's always room for improvement in boxing. You see Floyd Mayweather in his mid-30s training awfully hard for the Robert Guerrero fight, even though he's at the top of the game, because there are things to sharpen, there are things to improve if you're going to be at your best. Saul Alvarez certainly looks like he's on that road. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. And I'll just say this is not going to be the last fight that I get wrong. Right? Gambling entails risk every fight. There are going to be nights like this where a guy shows up better than you've seen him in the past. Right? I disagree strongly with the judges' scorecards. Quite frankly, I thought the fight could have been scored either way, but I'll concede Canelo certainly proved me wrong. He was much better than I ever expected. Thanks for watching.